The more hits we play, the more hits we get. URLradio.net. Stacey Sturm, Stacey and her posse in the morning. And on the phone with me today is our first female U.S. Senator, Heidi Heitkamp. Good morning, Heidi.
Hi, Stacey.
How is it going with you, lady?
Well, it's just kind of been whirlwind. It's amazing how fast a week goes by. When you look at it, we were just finishing up our bus tour about this time last week, and obviously election night on Tuesday. So we're very excited and ready to serve.
Now, were you election night? Take us to election night. I saw you guys sort of sat around as a family and watched the results. What were you thinking then?
I was thinking that we may. I tell you honestly, I was thinking that watching the election returns come in, that we knew we needed to have fairly good margins in Fargo and in Grand Forks and in Richland County. And Richland County came in strong, and I was watching Fargo, and Fargo wasn't as strong as I thought it would be. But in part, that was because they didn't count the early votes until later.
Yeah.
And so once I saw Fargo and Grand Forks and gratefully all of the wonderful eastern counties, rural counties, come in pretty strong for me, I was feeling fairly confident about midnight. But before that, I think it really was a toss-up.
Now, you have run for a major office before, and that's hard, isn't it, Heidi? What made you decide to try this again? It really came down to whether, in fact, I thought I had something to offer. And I know enough about campaigns, and obviously I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say I was the underdog pretty much the whole campaign. But I've learned enough about campaigns to know that they're hard work. And you've got to give it your all. You can't leave anything on the field. You got to leave it all on the field. You cannot take anything in reserve. And so I knew it would be a lot of hard work, but I really like people. And I like North Dakotans, and getting out and shaking hands and meeting people and listening to their stories. Every day when someone would tell me a story about, the challenges that they confront, in particular the people up in Minot who were still struggling with the flood, it made me even more excited about the opportunity to serve. And so, the campaign was ironically kind of fun for me. Yeah.
And people kept remarking, "Oh, you're in such a good mood." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, what's wrong with traveling around North Dakota, seeing North Dakota again and visiting with people?" But, I knew that there were big challenges ahead for this country, including fiscal challenges, energy policy and farm policy that make a difference for our state. And that I know that I have some good ideas, and I hope for an opportunity to make those things work for the state.
Now, what do you think you learned from your campaign in 2000? Was there anything you're like, you know what, God, if I ever do this again, I'm going to do this?
Actually, I don't know that I learned anything other than you made the decision. I'm not saying don't take it seriously, but don't think it's all about you.
Right.
I think a lot of times politicians think it's all about them. It really is about the people of North Dakota. And I think I ended up being more mature. I think I'm more mature as an office holder because I've had those 12 years to kind of watch how people view government, how people see the role of government in their lives. And I think it has made me a better elected official, having 12 years of not being an official.
Sure. Well, now, what made you decide to run for this office of all the offices, the U.S. Senate? That's a biggie.
Well, I think what I would tell you is I watched, like a lot of North Dakotans, a lot of people in this country, Washington's a place that doesn't seem to get things done. And they seem to elect people who are there to be partisan, to just represent their team and not the people of this country and the people of our state. And that really was the motivating factor. It was the consistent discussion that we had all during the campaign. And I think people in North Dakota get it. I say it this way, in every small town and even in big towns across North Dakota, there's a coffee table.
where people come together. They don't always agree. In fact, mostly they don't agree. But they somehow figure out how to put up the Christmas lights, and they figure out how to fix the church roof, and they figure out how to buy a fire truck. And even though they don't agree on everything, they get things done. And that's what's missing. People who know how to sit at a table like that and resolve conflict and resolve issues to move this country forward. And I really think that I'm that kind of person, and I've always been someone who's looked for people, regardless of their ideology, people who share a common concern with me to sit down and solve problems. And I can point to the work that we did on the property rights initiative, the work we did on the privacy referral, work that I've done on with law enforcement, where we really had some great champions with us who were Republicans who helped us move good policy forward. And so I've always had to be bipartisan in how I approach problems, and I think that represents a better model for North Dakota.
So when you told your family you're going to run, what was their reaction? Did you talk about it beforehand and say, should I run?
Yeah, I didn't tell my family you're going to run because this is something that involves everyone, and I've always been blessed. I mean, probably the story that doesn't get written enough about me is that I have a great partner in life, and that's my husband, who has is been in 100%. He's very shy, and so you don't see him a lot. Yeah. But he's always been a full partner in what I've done, and without his support this time, the answer would have been no. And he was in 100%. And actually, here's a guy who I always call him Eeyore because he just never looks very optimistic at anything. And the day of the election, I said, "Do you think I'm going to win?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And so that gave me a lot of confidence going into Election Day, because if he thought I was going to win, I thought we had a pretty good chance.
Yeah. You're like, if he's positive about this, then it must be good. So first thing you're going to do when you get to Washington, what do you want to work on?
Well, obviously the Farm Bill. We need to have long discussions about the Farm Bill, begin the discussions about energy policy, including the Keystone Pipeline and fracking. Making sure that EPA doesn't assume that they know about our geology, not one size fits all. Keep push back on that, and obviously have discussions with the administration and with other senators who share my concern on those issues.
Well,
the great irony of all of this is, if you had watched the TV ads, you would have thought that I wasn't going to fight for state regulation of fracking, and I think it's one of my top first priorities.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the ads, does it just kill you when those ads are running? Are you like, oh, are you kidding me? You see these new ads for the first time?
No, Stacy.
Yeah.
I didn't watch television. People said, how can you be so cheery? I said, I don't watch television and I don't listen to the radio. And so I'm a lot cheerier because of that.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that would have killed me. If I would have been flipping through the channels and saw those ads, I'd have just come unglued. I would have. From either party.
And I have to tell you, honestly, I expected them. And so it wasn't like, oh, look at, this is this. I expected that we were going to have that kind of campaign run against us. You don't see $10 million of advertising all positive. I mean, it wasn't going to happen. And so hopefully lessons were learned by people who want to spend that kind of money, that it doesn't necessarily work. People want to hear ideas. They want to hear, who you are and what you believe. And I think in the end, that was the campaign that we ran. And I think it was the campaign that was destined to be successful.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask you, as like somebody who doesn't exactly know how these PACs and stuff really do work, do you know what they're going to put out for ads? Because it's tough. Like, if you were to see a really negative ad put out by a PAC that's representing you, would you have said, we can't do that? I can't let you guys spend money like that.
There was an ad that was put out early on that criticized Rick Bergs for having his mother in his commercials. And if you look, we actually issued a press release saying, knock it off. His mother is off limits. She seemed like just a nice lady, and who can blame a mom for supporting her son? Right. And so we did. When we saw something that we really thought went over the line, we did issue statements. Now, we can't control what they do, but hopefully Rick and his mom saw that we were at least trying to stop that.
Keep it civil.
Yeah.
So that debate I moderated, was I mean to you, Heidi? Was I nice? Was I okay?
No, you were nice. What I will tell you this, I thought it was a really good. I thought it was a really good structure. I thought that the questions were really well thought out. I thought they were broader than what we had been talking about. The issue I have with the debates, honestly, is number one, there weren't enough of them, and I'll still say that today. We should have had an hour-long debate on the Farm Bill. We should have had an hour-long debate on health care. We should have had an hour-long debate on the stimulus and fiscal cliff. We didn't get those because Congressman Berg said no. But the ones that we did get weren't well broadcast. They people had to go out on the internet to find them. And I hope that what happens, and with your involvement, Stacey, with the League of Women Voters, that you really have discussions with the networks into the future about the need to have some kind of structure where there's broadcast debates that everybody can tune into if they want to on network television, because a lot of people don't have cable. A lot of seniors don't have cable.
Oh, true.
And so, I would have, if there's one thing that I would suggest, it's that the debates be handled differently and that there be a clearer path forward, kind of expectation from candidates that they actually debate.
Do you know what I was surprised was the question that really threw you guys off that I asked was, what's the one misperception people have about you? You and Rick both were like, what in the hell is that question?
Well, I think that you kind of there's a whole thing in the law, it's kind of hearsay. So what do you think somebody else thinks? And it's hard to know. I think in the end, I think both of us had an opportunity to say, look, after I said, that I actually hit the ball, because I heard that over and over again, that, you only hit 2 balls. I'm like, no, I actually do know how to hit a baseball.
You have good form. Yeah, you have good form, Heidi. It was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was hitting ahead of it. It wasn't perfect, but, I can hit the ball. I said, people say, well, what about that? I said, they didn't make me run to first, so it was all good. It was that you can't trust me, that I don't mean what I say, that I'll say anything. And I think in the end, that's what I said.
Yeah, I think that's what you came around to too. Yeah. Yeah. Did you watch it on C-SPAN?
I have a really hard time watching myself.
I couldn't either.
I read transcripts. It's probably not the best thing to not watch yourself, but I've always been that way. Even back when I was Attorney General and Tax Commissioner, if I had a news conference, I'd just never watch myself on television. I'll read transcripts of what I said, because I think, being concise and I tend to wander a little bit into the weeds, and so I always learn something about, that's not the question they asked. So I try and learn from that in terms of being concise. But honestly, my whole I don't watch myself on television if I can avoid it. I know. That's why I went from television into radio, was for that exact fact. I used to watch I can't do it. I watched it about 5-10 minutes of it on C-SPAN. I'm like, I can't do this. I gotta go. Flip. I'm gonna go watch House Hunters. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on with us today, Heidi. You bet. And thanks for inviting me, Stacey. Yeah, and I know you're going to be busy, but if you get a chance, you can swing by the radio station anytime you are in town. Okay. And talk about what you're working on in Washington.